Chaba Kиш, you are a well-known Hungarian lawyer with more than 30 years of experience in environmental cases of different character. So I would like to ask you, Hungary was the first country in Central and Eastern Europe to adopt access to information or Freedom of Information Act. So what do you think? How important is access to information in environmental matters for the society and for the rights of citizens?
I think this is fundamentally important, and this is always the first step in enforcing environmental rights. Without information, we are simply not able to design our case strategies or litigation strategies. And I know that many of our clients come to us with a complex package, a complex set of requirements, asking us to submit appeals, go to the court, etc. But many times we have to stop them and say that, wait a minute, we don't have enough information. Let's first start with the freedom of information request.
That's very important, but sometimes the public bodies are not very open and keen to provide access to information. So in these cases, you have the right in Hungary to go either to the information commissioner or to the court. Is the commissioner and the court efficient in that exercise, and how it was in the years?
I would say it may sound strange because I know that there are a lot of negative things that can be heard and read about Hungary. And in terms of global politics, most of it is true. But in terms of access to environmental information, I would say that both the commissioner and the courts are effective and useful. First of all, the commissioner has a very expedient, a very fast procedure, so you can get a response within weeks sometimes. And the courts also the court rules, the procedural rules, made the access to information cases very much expedited again, and that makes it very good tool to react fast to the refusal of information. If I may give you an example, we applied for mining data, mining permits, because Hungary is investing in non-conventional or unconventional gas mining, fracking, shale gas extraction. And the civil society organization applied for 50 different permits in a region, the southern region of Hungary. And of course, the request was refused. And we submitted a court case sometime on the 20th of December. So right in the middle of or before the Christmas holidays. And already on the 7th of January, I was standing in front of the court litigating and arguing because the court said, it's a very fast case, it's an expedited case. I give you a date for the hearing, 7th of January.
Very good then. So you confirm that courts are very important for maintaining the rule of law in a democracy and to oppose the executive even if it's quite politicized. So what are the last actual environmental cases in Hungary that really matter, and what is the level of success in courts?
Hungary started a very strong and very, I would say, forced, aggressive industrialization process. Some even compare it with the 1950s, when the old communist regime gave Hungary a new direction, and it says Hungary should be the country of iron and steel, without actually much iron and steel resources. Currently, this is electric batteries for electric cars, and we have Chinese and South Korean investors, and huge factories are being built all around the country for producing batteries for electric cars, for all types of cars, like all brands. And of course, people oppose these developments. These are mega facilities, absolutely disproportionate to the locations where they are put. So there are small villages or little towns, and they get a huge facility outside the town. And this requires the new territories, new areas, so agricultural land is lost. There is a huge amount, a very big amount of chemicals used. A lot of traffic is generated because everything is transported on road and not on rails. And people and NGOs fight against these. The success rate is, I would say, moderate. We could win a case lately, but only for procedural reasons. And the court has not yet said that this is unacceptable because of the pollution. The court only said that there was a mistake in the procedure. We'll go to the court again, of course.
Oh, which is pretty much what courts do say in many other places. In summer 2025, you got a really landmark constitutional court decision on the constitutionality of the climate law, climate protection law, and climate change law, actually.
Yes.
Can you summarize the main important things that the Constitutional Court actually emphasizes?
I'm trying, although the decision of the Constitutional Court is a long one and a very, very detailed one. I would say there are two major points in the decision. First one is that making the law on such an important issue as climate change, containing only one sentence which says Hungary will decrease CO2 emissions with 40% by 2030, full stop, does not qualify as constitutional because it's not enforceable. It's not understandable. There are no details in the law how this is going to be done, who should do it, what should be done, timeline, responsibilities, etc. So the court said, this is basically not a law. This is a wishful thinking. So this is not constitutional. The court also said that because it puts the burden of solving climate change or trying to solve climate change on the future generations, then it infringes intergenerational equity or intergenerational justice. And basically that was the second reason why the court said this is not constitutional. The government should go back to square one and start the process again and do it again and create a law which meets these requirements. Accessible, understandable, enforceable, and does not burden the future generations disproportionately.
That's really quite an advanced interpretation. If you compare between the European Court of Human Rights judgment on the Swedish case, climate change case, and the Hungarian Constitutional Court case, would you see big differences or something that could be said about the Hungarian Constitutional Court?
I think that the biggest similarity or the kind of the overlapping areas of the two decisions is the intergenerational equity and the future generations issue. Otherwise, of course, these are two different arts, the human rights judgment and the Constitutional Court decision. There's hardly any common issue, but the intergenerational equity. I think everybody starts to feel now that whatever we are doing now is not just affecting us, but it's going to very deeply affect our sons, daughters, grandchildren, etc., and the way forward. This kind of anxiety is expressed in these judicial decisions, of course, in a legal sense, very well, but still the motivation is this fear of the future.
Yeah. Which is very important because the responsibility for a longer period is actually something philosophical on one hand, but on the other hand is quite a kind of a devotion to civilization, because what we're doing today have an impact tomorrow. But coming back to the nowadays, I would like to ask you the question, because SLAPs are threats in Europe against NGOs, journalists, activists. These are strategic lawsuits against public participation. Do you have examples in Hungary of that kind of litigation against environmentalists or journalists or activists?
Not against environmentalists, not typically. I don't have an example. As you mentioned in the introduction, We've been working in environmental cases for more than 30 years, and we have never had a single case where we were or the NGOs were taken to the court. However, anti-corruption NGOs are taken to the court, and also journalists and newspapers. Very notably, Forbes. Forbes puts together the list of 100 richest person in every country. And this list was put together, and somebody on the list complained that they should not be on the list and they should be removed. And luckily the court found that the methodology of Forbes putting together these lists is totally based on freely accessible public information. Nothing is hidden, nothing is secret. So the court said, if you can put together such lists, then you can freely publish it, what you think are, or who you think are the most wealthy persons. Taking it to the environmental issues, if you have data about environmental pollution, emissions, etc., you can just freely put together like the list of most polluting facilities. And if it's based on public data, you can just release it. It's a hypothetical issue now, but then for protection for future, based on this judgment, that we can do such kind of things in access to information.
Thank you very much. And finally, in April 2026, you have elections, parliamentary elections in Hungary. Can you share what are your hopes for improvement in Hungarian society?
First of all, I do hope very strongly that this government will be overthrown and removed. I think that apart from rule of law, corruption, and culture and international relationship with the EU, with Ukraine, with Russia, things, if we just focus on environmental issues, the impact of this government is devastating. There is no Ministry of Environment, which is very unique in the world. I think there are 2 or 3 more countries in the world which do not have such ministries. The public administration, which deals with environmental issues, is merged together in a big government office, which deals with mining, healthcare, culture, social, whatever. So environment is just one of the items on the portfolio. Environmental NGOs do not get stable and good funding for doing their job, although their role is obviously very important. And instead of climate communication and instead of talking about the real problems, this government is talking about really artificial problems which create an atmosphere where they can just get more votes. I very much hope that this is going to be changed for the better.
Thank you very much. Let's hope so for Hungary, for Bulgaria, and for Europe, for Europe, because it's very important. Thank you very much for these important comments. My guest was the Hungarian environmental lawyer Chaba Kиш.
Thank you.
And this is the Line Democracia podcast. I wish you all to have better environment and better access to information.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chaba.